Hey Harvey, what day is it?
It is March 27, 2023, corresponding to the 6th of Nissan 5783.
Thank you very much. That's like in baseball. What was the name of this? The announcer, Costell? Harold Costell, famous announcer from my youth. So Harvey Atlas is up there with him. Okay, so I wrote in the email, if you saw it, that one of the most commonly asked questions of myself, and I'm sure of all Rabbanim, is what happens if you go away for Pesach and you leave before the night of Bedikas Chometz? Every year, at least 10 or 20 people ask me the same question. They're leaving. Bedikas Chometz this year will be, I guess, Tuesday night. So if you leave before Tuesday night, if you leave Sunday or Monday, wherever it is that you go, or you leave the week before, what do you do about Bedikas Chometz? So the Shulchan Aruch is very clear. Shulchan Aruch says, "Hamefarish," on the top of page 1, "Hamefarish b'yabosh yam al yotze b'sheyara ve'ena meniach bebeis mishi yivdok." If you went away on a trip and you don't have anybody to check at home, toch shloshim yom zaka livdok. If it's within 30 days, you have to make a b'dika. Kodem shloshim yom, and like that's chopped off. But if you go before 30 days, you don't have to do a b'dika at all, because at that time, the Gemara says that the 30 days is considered like you're connected to Yantif. Shloshim Yom Lefnei HaChag, you're already a Darshim Hilchos of the Chag. Before that, it's not Pesach time, so you don't have to worry about Bedikas Chometz. And when it becomes time for Bedikas Chometz, you're a Ninus, you're in Alaska, so you're not mechuyev to do Bedikas Chometz. But if it's within 30 days, you have to do Bedikas. So, but the Ramah adds, V'lo Yivarech Az Al Bir Chometz, but you don't make a bracha of Al Bir Chometz. This is not, the Gemara doesn't discuss the bracha. The Gemara just says that if you within 30 days you have to destroy the chametz. But the Ramah adds that you shouldn't make a bracha. So the reason is the Mishnah Berurah says. So first the Mishnah Berurah says, when do you have to make a bedika? The Zokah Livdok. So when do you make a bedika? You're not going to be able to make a bedika necessarily the last day. So the Mishnah Berurah says, "B'layla shulfnei yitziaso." Or haner, you do it the night before you're leaving, the last night that you're around. The gam tzarach az levatel chametz shalra kama b'leil yadal. And that's another question people ask me. Do you have to say kol chamira if you're doing the bedika on leil yud beis or yud aleph? So Mishnah Berurah says clearly you do have to say bitul chametz, and it's the night before you're leaving. So whatever day you're leaving, if you're leaving Tuesday afternoon, so Monday night you make a bedika. So and further down, the Mishnah Berurah says, "V'lo yivarach dekishabod b'leil yidala tikna levarach al bir chametz lefi shemashu motzi b'bedika." So why do you make the bracha al bir chametz? You should make the bracha al bedikas chametz. So the reason is because the purpose of bedika is to make beer, and as soon as you finish making the bedika, you put away the chametz, matzia kidei levarma, to burn it tomorrow. Nimsa da bedika hu haschalas habir. The bedika is the beginning of the beer. Masha'ein kain kan shelo yivaro min ha'olam v'yishtamish bo shayamim el shumefanem v'ayzeh. But if it's more than a day before, if it's not Erev Pesach, so then you're going to use the chametz. There's no reason why you have to put it away. You're right before Pesach. We say that you're probably going to put it away. But if it's a few days before, you're still using it, so you can't say al bir chametz. The bracha is not on. If the bracha would be bedikas chametz, so you should be able to make a bracha on the bedika. But the bracha is on the beer. So the beer, the day before Pesach, you could say that you make a bracha on the beer. But if it's more than a day before, you can't make the bracha. The truth is, not everybody holds that way, because the beer halacha says amnam on the right side. Amnam das habach. This is the beer halacha. The betoch shloshim yom tzarich levarach. The Bach holds that you do make a bracha. V'das ha-pri chadash the lo tzarich levarach came to chayvil chacham levidog. And the pri chadash also holds that you make a bracha. Is if you're mechuyev to make a bedika, you're mechuyev to make a bracha. Mistimis hamagen Avram v'taz v'shar achron and mash with tafsuk kedas ha'agad l'olam in tzarich levarach. The Ramah says v'lo yivarach. So in the Ramah, in the parentheses after the Ramah, it says kobo. Yeah.
But doesn't this imply that, or at least the Shulchan Aruch and maybe a little bit also the Mishnah Berurah, that you're going to be coming back to your house
On Pesach?
On Pesach.
No, it
Because
doesn't.
It says Misha ve'eno maniach bebeso Misha yivdok. So they're still in the house. You just happen to not be there available to do the bedika. But
No, because he says if there is somebody in the house, so then even if it's more than 30 days, you would have to have him make the bedika.
Well, they would make the bedika when at the right time. If there's no, the problem is when there is no one in the house.
Right. So
Because
that's why.
the rest of the simanim deal with the fact with what happens if you're coming in before or after.
So you make you do the bittul that night that you're doing the bedika, and
then
you don't
then
do the bittul.
No, you do it again. We always do it again. You don't do it the night before Pesach, but you do it in the daytime. There's the night bittul and the day bittul, and there's two different nuschos. One is the chazis, the other chazis.
But
So
you don't do that night bittul.
the night bittul, the night before Pesach, the night you go. I don't think you make a bittul. You made it. There's no purpose in making another. That bittul you had said already.
But what if you're traveling, but you have a lot of chometz with you?
So you're going to say bittul in the morning. I don't know. I hear what you're asking. I don't know. I didn't see anybody say to you. I mean, why do you have to make bittul altogether if you're still using the chometz?
Maybe you have to, if you're staying someplace else, maybe you have to just check where Chometz is there.
Mishnah Berurah said in the Bir Sharatzian, he says that the Taz and the Chok Yaakov say that you shouldn't say you shouldn't be mevatel. But he says that the Magaravan people got him in the Bach and the Gra. They say also you should say bittul.
So bittul on chometz you didn't see.
What?
The bittul on chometz you didn't. Meaning it's a bittul that's a part of the beer. It's not a bittul that's a din choshesh for any possible buyer by matzah. Meaning this is bittul on shlo ra. Anything they have in mind, the Mishnah writes anything you have in mind is not included in the
that's what I'm saying.
to keep or to eat or to whatever is not included in this bittul at night.
Because it's a part of the bedika, right? I've now been bodek this house, and anything that I
A bodik
see-
tzarich shuvatel. That's part of. There's a chiv bedika and there's a chiv bittul. You need both. Rishonim explain why, but you need both bedika and bittul. So I don't know. I'm not sure. The Mishnah doesn't say that you should make bedika again, so I don't know. Okay, so the halacha is like the Ramah. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. We passing like the Ramah, not like the Bach and the Pri Chodesh. That if you leave before it's the last night, and you make bittul, and you don't recite a bracha. So now the question is, what about the minhag of putting out the 10 pieces of bread? Does that minhag apply if you're leaving early? If you're leaving more than one day before Pesach? If you go, somebody today came to my house to sell chametz. He's going to Spain. He's leaving later in the week, I think. So do you have to put out pieces of bread when you're making this bedika, or you don't put out pieces of bread?
No, it's just because in case of brachal batal.
Okay, so we'll see. The question is, what's the reason for the bracha? That's exactly what it depends on. If it's because of bracha batala, so then there's no point. If you're not making bracha, you don't need to put out the bread. But we'll see. There's other reasons why you put out pieces of bread. So the basis for putting out bread is found in the Mechaber doesn't say anything about putting out pieces of bread. The Ramah is the one that makes note of the minhag. If you look at page 2 on the top, the Ramah says, "Nogim laniach pesisei chametz b'makam shimtzeim habodei kedei shelo yiberchasol v'atala." Where the minhag is to put out pieces of bread, so it shouldn't be the bracha v'atala. Umiyu imlo nasan lo ikid. That's adam im bracha levar im nimsa. When he makes the bracha, he has in mind that it's a bracha on he'll destroy whatever he finds. So therefore it's not. Ramah says it's not necessary, but nonetheless, Ramah quotes the minhag. So the Achronim are mefalpol tremendous amount about this minhag. The Taz says, "Umiyo," or you know what? Okay, so the Taz says, on the same page, right underneath Ramah, the Taz says, "Mihu imlo nasan v'chayro lino gechatchila." The Taz says that you shouldn't put out pieces of bread. Because Ramah says if you didn't put out, it's okay. First he says the minig is to put out, and he says if you didn't put out, it's okay. So the Taz says, Miu and Monasan, if you didn't put out, that's the best way to be knowing. Why? The Chashin and Shema Yenichu b'makom shelo yim se'eno habodik. Because you're going to put out the bread, and then you count it up at the end, and your 3-year-old daughter put out 10 pieces, and there's only 9. So now you're stuck. What are you going to do? So it's better not to put out pieces of bread. It's against the whole cleaning for Pesach. Your wife spends weeks cleaning, and then you go ahead and you put pieces of bread all over the house. So the Taz says don't do that. Ubracha b'tah ein kan, and it's not bracha b'tah. The bracha koy amashi yivar l'macher bevadai. El shemeyom maschei dei bedika. The bracha is on. He doesn't say the bracha is on the bedika. The bracha is on what you're going to destroy. So, but the bedika starts at night. But the bracha is not on the chometz that you're going to find during the bedika.
Isn't that like a huge hafsa between?
Yeah, why are we making a bracha at night? If the bracha is on the biur, so why don't we make the bracha when we make the biur? That's a very good question.
In the Bedikas,
What?
if you don't find anything in the Bedikas, what are you going to revire the next day?
Yeah, what does he mean that the bracha is right? So maybe he means if you have other chametz. I mean, we always make sure to leave over chametz the kind of mitzvah of beer. There's a shayla, the Minchas Chinuch has a shayla. Is the mitzvah of tashbisu is the mitzvah that you should destroy chametz, or is the mitzvah not to have chametz? The nafkamina is if you don't have chametz, should you go buy chametz in order to destroy it? But most people, I mean, we do beer chametz. We all make sure to have some chametz, and we do beer chametz.
If you were traveling, you could easily have been revire the chametz 2 or 3 days before.
Why does the beer have to be the
But then there's no bracha.
in a chanami? So then there's no bracha. But the bracha, the Taz says the bracha is on the beer that you're going to do the next day. And
This is the beginning of the process. The bedika, whether you find anything or not, the bedika is the beginning of the process.
Purpose of the bedika is so that if you find chametz, what are you going to do with it? You're not going to put it in your brake front. You're gonna burn it. So the purpose of it.
So according to the Taz, it makes sense to have chametz, but not necessarily to put it out around your house where you might not find it.
Yeah, you have to hold on to chametz in order to do beer. Correct. In order to do beer, you have to have some chametz, but you shouldn't hide it in the house, because then if you can't find it, you're going to be in the big trouble. So here we already have a machokes. The Ramah it seems to be ambivalent. First he says that you should, and then he says, but if you didn't, it's also okay. But the Taz favors the second part of the Ramah that you should not that you should not hold on, that you should not put out pieces of chametz. If you look on the first page, the reason why I don't have anything in order is because I just wanted to maximize the use of the space. It didn't always work out. So this minhag, even though the Mechaber doesn't bring this minhag, the Ramah brings the minhag, but the Beis Yosef brings the minhag in the commentary on the Torah on page 1 on the left side. The Beis Yosef says Kosav HaKolbo. The Ramah brings it from the Kolbo, so the Beis Yosef also brings it from the Kolbo. Nagam mixes Mekolmos in some places, a few places, not all over. Shemat minim psisin shel pas b'chari habayis. So there's a subtle difference between the way the Beis Yosef says it and the Ramah says it. The Ramah says noagim lohaniach psisei chametz b'makam shiyit yimsem abodek. The Ramah, but the Beis Yosef says matminim psisim shall pass b'choria, you hide it. Kedei shiyimsem abodek. In order that you should find it, you don't hide it so well, but it should still be hidden. There's a discussion about. I saw the post talking about if the person doesn't have any kids in the house, or he's single. Should he hide if he's putting out chametz? Should he do it himself? Is it a hide and seek thing? Like you hide it so you should be able to find it, or or is it even if you know where it is? It's not a problem. But it's interesting. The language of the Beis Yosef is slightly different. Because Beis Yosef says you should be matmin it. If you do it yourself, you can't be matmin it. You can't hide it. But anyway, he says vivarm she'im lo yimsa klum choshu roch matah v'anu lo chashashu b'zeh lezel lefi she'daitenu sh'kvorchem abir levarim inimsa. So the Beis Yosef says we're not chayshish for this minhag. He says what the same thing the Ramah says in the closing statement. The Ramah. So the question is, so where does it stand then? The Beis Yosef doesn't. The Sfardim, what they're on? What do the Sfardim do? Do they put out pieces of bread? They do. It's interesting. The reason why they put it out probably is because of the Arizal. Sfardim are very much into Kabbalah more than Ashkenazim. So we'll see. The Arizal supposedly said to put out bread, but the Beis Yosef says not to do it, and the Taz says not to do it because we're afraid you won't find all the bread. But the Ramah nonetheless brings the minhag. And the Darkei Moshe over here on the bottom of the page, the Darkei Moshe was authored by the Ramah. Ramah is Ramosh Isilish, so he wrote first the commentary on the Torah. And his commentary is called Darkei Moshe, and then he condensed the commentary on the Torah and he put it into the Shulchan Aruch as the Hagah of the Ramah. So in the Darkei Moshe he says Umari Yisrael b'din Brin. Cause of the Tzarchaniach Psisim. Marie Yisrael brings that you should put out pieces. That's the minhag. Umario Kosav Dimlo Nimsa Klum Sorfa Makli Shalaka Levarbo Kedei Liskar Mitzvahs Beer. The Mariel says the purpose of putting out pieces is that you're reminded to do beer. Because if you don't, you may forget Erev Pesach that you have chametz that you're holding on to and you're ready to do beer. So you should burn something. So you should remember that there's a mitzvah to do beer.
Doesn't Gemara say we're going to assume that you remember to do beer? The Gemara says you have to do bittul at a time when you're going to remember to do bittul. So when is that? It's going to be at a time of beer because everyone remembers to do beer. So the Gemara doesn't seem to be so close to Yeshua.
So why this new chumrah of the Mariel that you should burn the kli?
Mitzvah to be also
What?
So that you remember so that you always do the mitzvah. Basically, if people happen to be particularly organized and never have chametz, at that point at some point they will not have.
The reason why everybody remembers is because they're always doing it.
Burn the wooden spoon.
Okay, maybe you're right. That's maybe why they have wooden spoon. Now, on the bottom here is the Morixia. The Morixia is Rav Yaakov Emden, and he says, and he quotes the Berheitev. The Berheitev. Okay, this is on page 2. If you go back to page 2, the Berheitev on the left side near the bottom, the Berheitev says, "V'noagim in Sifkat Zayin." V'hanogim lohaniach yizor shelo yanichu el chametz kosher shelo yifar. You shouldn't put out crummy bread. You should put out bread that'll stay whole. Okay, and then but the next piece he says, v'chein roi linhog l'chatchila d'chashin shem yinechim makom shelo yimtzah boda. He quotes the Taz. The Taz says that what the Ramah says that if you didn't put it out, the Taz says that's what you should do. You shouldn't put it out because you might forget where it is. So he says, Arizal cost of minhag zeh. The Arizal quotes this minhag. This is what most of us do. We put out 10 pieces of bread. In fact, when you buy one of these, you can buy a Bedikas Chometz kit, and they have the bread is even numbered, so you'll know where you're up to. But the Arizal says that you should put out pieces of bread. So even though the Taz says the Ramaz is equivocates, and the Taz says not to do it, but the Berheitev says that you should follow you should put it out because that's based on Kabbalah. There's a reason to put it out. So now this question about whether we should make a bracha if you leave early should depend on which reason is predominant. If the reason why I'm putting it out is because of the bracha, is because it's because of the bracha. There shouldn't be bracha at all. So if you leave early and there's no bracha, so there's no reason to put out bread. But if you're putting it out because Al Pi Side, because the Arizal says to put it out, so that might apply even before Leil Pesach.
It might, right? It's not clear.
Yeah.
It might, but it's not clear. That is exactly correct.
Although the result, it should apply anytime.
That depends on the exact reasoning, right?
Well,
No, it says it's a
sorry, so since
Right, the Sod Gadol that has to do with the
No, so
specific
according to
specific
that, so
Havot of Erev
if-
Pesach, and then in the
No,
Rabbi Esau
but-
versus with the Sfirot, and it goes with the Sfirot, but that only applies that one.
if you look on page 7, this is Shmuel Felder is a postic in Lakewood, and he has svarim, very nice svarim on each yantif. So he says, "V'hini kasav Ramah." We have it underlined. "V'hini kasav Ramah." The nogam manich pesuse chametz makom sheyim se b'abada kadei shlo yeh berchasav atal lo yimseim. Ukvar leinu mi'el michuvas marash v'sevei mekalachad b'zman hazeh shemen nakim habayis heitiv kolam pesach shuv yeshua v'yesh v'zechiv medina. Some say that you're obligated to put out pieces of bread because you already. Otherwise, you're not doing anything by doing b'dika. You know the house is clean. And then he says, this idea of putting out bread makes sense when you're making bracha. There's other reasons. We didn't get to that. I'm reading this because of the conversation you people are having. The Chok Yaakov says that if you don't put out bread, the person will think my house is clean anyway. We'll have to look around for it. So so maybe that even before you die, you should do it. This is what I wanted to show you right now. And it's uncertain. You could question. So this is the machlokus we just had among illustrious members of our shir. Whether do we assume that if there's a site al pi Kabbalah, so what's the difference if it's the night before or 2 nights before, or maybe it's only the night before? So Rabbi Felder concludes, he says the minhag is not to put out bread. So even though the Arizal says there's a site, but he says apparently the minhag is not to do it. So, but let's go back to the page 1, the Arizal's position, which is probably the strongest reason to put out. If you're putting out bread, if you're going to say that you should put out bread, if you leave early, the strongest reason would be because based on their Arizal's side. So he says that. So the Rav Yaakov Endman says. The bear hativ quotes the Arizal that we just saw. He says, "Me idani, I could testify. My father made fun of the people that put out pieces of bread. Who was his father? Anybody know? Chacham Tzvi. So who's a hayabaki b'chol kisvei Arizal? He was a baki in the Arizal, Rov min Hago Kukulo, he knew almost everything. Haya Alpi, Rov min Hago Kukulo, Haya Alpi Divi Arizal. Most of his minhagim that he followed were based on the Arizal. Since he didn't put it out, means he never heard of such thing. And the Arizal never said that. But in the Shalah, he says it in the name of a Sefer Musar. Umandalo choshla ena pereya Musar. Umiderach hayashla. What?
It's alliteration.
Ena pereya Musar. Umiderach hayashla sar. Umitzvah lo chasar. Ena pereya Musar. Okay, Musar, Sar, and Chasar. So the Arizal says that there is. So the Rav Yaakov Emden says there is no such Arizal. Just time-wise, when the Arizal lived in the 1500s, Rav Yaakov Emden lived in the 1700s, so he's like 200 years later. If you looked carefully in the Be'er Heitev, if you go back to page 2, this is the new version that I copied there's a new version of the Shulchan Aruch that we have here in the library that has a nicer font, and they got rid of the typos, and they filled in a lot of the abbreviations that we didn't know what they were. They put them in. So here in the Ber Hativ, he says Arizal, and he also puts a lot of Maramakomos. So Arizal, so he puts in the brackets Pri Eitz Chaim, Shar Chag Matzos, Mishnas Chasidim, Meseches Nisan. Okay, I don't know if those Svarim, who wrote those Svarim. I don't know if they're Talmidim or they're Arizal.
That's
But
I think it's Chaim Vital.
what? It's Rav Chaim, Pri Eitz Chaim?
It's Chaim Vital.
It's Rav Chaim Vital. And a lot of others quote also sources. I think Rav Yosef in the Tshuva later on here also quotes the Arizal, and he says some of the sources for the Arizal. So even though the right, he quotes it from the Pri Eitz Chaim, the thing. Yeah, I think you're right. The Pri Eitz Chaim is Rav Chaim Vital. So that's what we have. We have two different opinions whether you're supposed to put out bread or you don't put out bread. The Chok Yaakov, and they have those that say that either you put it out for the bracha or you're putting it out because of their Arizal, al pisoid. And now in the Chok Yaakov, there's another reason. He says the Chok Yaakov says in Well Nasan Lo Avid V'Arayvid B'Tamim Deim. You see, it's on page 2. I'm sorry, in the middle of the page on the right column. Chok Yaakov says this is a commentary in Shulchan Aruch. In Well Nasan Lo Avid V'Arayvid B'Tamim Deim Kasav the Minig Zeh Ma'aseh Nashimu. This minig already dates back to the time of the Ravid. The Arizal was in the 1500s, but the Ravid was probably 200 years earlier. There's more than one Ravid. I don't know which one this was, but what?
I think it's the one on the Rambam.
The one, and he's the same as the Tamim Deim.
I think
Yeah, so either way, he's definitely at least 200 years before the Arizal. So he says he's not too happy about this minig. He says it's a minig nashim, ma'aseh nashim. In Yiddish they say it's a vibrisha ma'aseh. Vataz kosav. That's not derogatory. That's because in case some of the ladies are listening, that's just the Yiddish word for nashim is vibra. So he says v'arayvet. He says vataz kosav the gamkin chatchir roy lenok shgol haniachum, and the taz is an agreement with the Rabbi says that it's not a real minig. Umari vayo kosav the tam shenichem shlo yishloch levato lemocher. Masha'enkin k'sheish chometz niskar b'zman abir levato. The Marival says a whole different reason, that if you have chometz, then you'll remember that you have to make bittul, otherwise you might forget to make bittul. And then the Chok Yaakov offers another reason. V'liner tama minig she'im yivdog v'yimsa zman ma yisrash shuv v'yisai shmei Bedikas v'lo yivdog od heitev. If you don't put out any chometz, so the house is clean. The wives have been cleaning the house for weeks, so you're not going to find anything. Sometimes you do bedika and you find a little tiny crumb on the floor. You're not sure what it is, and misafik you pick it up. But basically, there's no chametz around. So why should you bother? Why should you bother doing a thorough bedika? Because the bedika is not supposed to be perfunctory. The bedika is supposed to be thorough. So in order to remind you to do a thorough bedika, you leave chametz lying around the house.
But
That
you're
way.
not going to be home anyways. So why are you doing a thorough bedika? Why will these pieces of bread help? Like, why? I mean, most people don't even clean. Like, if you're going away.
So you're touching on another question. If you're going away, do you have to clean the house at all? I heard from Rabbi Gissinger. I asked him this question years ago. What is if a person's going away? So what does it mean that he's doing? That he's cleaning for Pesach. What is he? He said the thing you shouldn't have chametz lying around. It should be put away. You don't have to do as thorough as if you're being home. And also, if you're home, then you can't just put the chametz in a closet. You have to put a piece of tape on the closet. You have to make a siman not to go there. But if you're going away, you lock the front door. You don't have to put tapes any place. You just wherever it is. But he's told me that you still have to do something. Okay, so anyway, here you have, and so the Chok Yaakov says Engel Vatal Minig Yisrael. You should follow the Minig Yisrael. The Gra on the bottom of the page says Ayin Darki Moshe. The minig that the Ramah quotes that you should put out bread. He says a machlok and in Darki Moshe that there was a machlokas the Marivayo the Mario held that the whole purpose to put out the bread is only so you should remember to burn, but but the others say not to. She says machlok some taloi. I'm sorry, he's going. No, he's going on the Ayin Darkei Moshe. When he says Machokim Tola, he means the Machokas in the Ramah. That the Ramah says Miyum Nasal Ikev. So he says that the Machokas, whether you're mechiv to put out bread, in order it shouldn't be a bracha matala. It's told by Puktas Rabbeinu Tam Bari. Shikos Rosh Berg Ba'al of the brachas. Bebirchas Asuka Al Hashina. There's a Machokas between the Ri and the Rabbeinu Tam, but you make a bracha. There's a chiyuv to eat in the sukkah, but there's also a chiyuv to sleep in the sukkah. It's a mitzvah basically takes for to do it. So why we always make the bracha on eating? Why don't we make the bracha on sleeping? So the Ri says because you might not fall asleep. That's why. So he says he's saying that this shayla whether you should make a bracha on whether you should put out pieces of bread in order it shouldn't be bracha latala is if you'll say that you shouldn't make a bracha on shina by sukkah because you may not fall asleep. So you see that the bracha, it's not enough that you're going to sleep. You have to be asleep. So by the same token, it's not if you make a bracha al bir chametz, it's not enough that you're attempting to mivar chametz. You have to actually do it. But if you say, and therefore you have to put out chametz, so you shall have something to burn. But if you say that the bracha on shina in hamapil is that you're trying to go to sleep, so you could say the same thing. The bracha is on trying to find chametz. So as long as you're trying to find it. So, and then at the very end he says, "Va'od yesh." I'm sorry, I mixed up the two things. He's talking about first. He talks about the bracha on sleeping, by sukkah, and then he says, "Va'od yesh raya deinu levarach dein tzarach b'birchas hamapel." He brings a raya that you don't have to put out pieces of bread because you make the bracha of hamapel. Why don't we say maybe you won't fall asleep? So he says, you see that you make by hamapel the brachas on trying to fall asleep. So similarly, the bracha on bir chametz is on trying to find the chametz. So, but the gra, if you ask, so what does the gra hold l'maisa? The gra says that ein tzarich. He says yesh raya ein tzarich b'birchas hamapel because the hamapel we make a bracha. So the gra seems to hold. The ways in on this machlok is that you don't have to put out pieces of bread. The Mishnah Berurah quotes. Oh, there's one more piece here, and that's in the Shari Tshuva. The Shari Tshuva says that's also on the second page on the right side, near about 3 paragraphs up. V'nogamayim berhetiv I machzik bracha b'shem shal shua zera ms shehaminiach. When you put out pieces of bread, you should make sure that they're very small. You should put out small pieces of bread. Okay, I thought he says the ayin machzik bracha. He doesn't tell you what the machzik bracha says, but we'll see later on what the machzik bracha says.
Should we listen to Zayis in total or each one must be?
No, it should be in total. It's supposed to be more than Zayis, but each one is supposed to be. That's the way the post can bring it. Each one, because if it's less than Zayis, then it helps bittul on those pieces.
But then we said that if there's a Zayis or Chometz total in the house, then it's mitzvah.
You're right. It should be the house is mitzvah. So what does it matter that each piece is less than Zayis? I don't know. That's a very good question.
The whole house is mitzvah?
Yeah, that's why. I always had a suffix in a supermarket when there's the issur of Chamash over Pesach is only if you were over by your Rabbi Matzeh, then then there's a din of chametz over Pesach. So if the chametz is less than the kazayas, so there's no bal yirav ayimatze on a chatzi shir, and therefore you and it wouldn't be chametz over Pesach. So let's say for example licorice has flour, but probably is less than the kazayas, so it wouldn't be chametz over Pesach. But the question is, are you mitzdaref all the licorice in the supermarket, or all the licorice on the shelf? Are you mitzdaref different shelves? And I went and spoke to Rabbi Shechter about it. He wrote a tshuva about it. I think I brought it in a few years ago. I don't remember what he said. Okay, so now if you look on page 3, so what are you supposed to do here? You should do with pieces of bread. You shouldn't do. So the Mishnah Berurah says, "Umiyu," on the page 3 on the left side towards the end. He says, "Umiyu cholak al zed ein kan cheshesh bracha b'torah." The Ramah says that if you don't put out, it's okay because the Mishnah Berurah says, "Why is it okay?" Because there's no bracha b'torah. The chein hu hamitzvah livdol chametz l'chapis achar shem yimtzah v'lo yimtzah ein b'kachov. He's doing the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to look for it, so he's doing it. He says, "Vatas kosovod abracha koy amashi yivaru macher b'vadim ashisha mechiloso alshmeyel masla yidei habedika." The Taz says that the bracha is on the beer. He's saying 2 reasons why it won't be a bracha at all. The Taz is because the bracha is on the beer. Mishnah Berurah says because the bracha is on the bedika, and you're doing the bedika. And then he says, "V'chein eskimu achron medina v'ayim b'chok Yaakov shekos mikomko ein kedai levatal minig sheyisrael." He says, even though the Achronim are asking to the Taz that there's really no Chash Baruch Hu, but they say you shouldn't be Mevatel Minig Yisrael. V'ayin Sham Shenas Tamla Minig, and he brings various reasons for the Minig, the Chok Yaakov, because this way it'll remind you to do Bedika. V'gam Hariz Al Kasa Minig Zeh Sheniach Asar Absisim. Acha Yeshizar Harbe Shalo Yom Benachim Absisim. V'ayin Mishai Tshuva. So Mishnah Berurah paskins that you should put out pieces of bread. He doesn't paskin, even though the Gra seems to paskin that you don't have to. But in fact, I didn't in Yud Aleph, he says on the top where there's the little Yud Aleph, he says v'chein iskimu achronim medina. Achronim are maskim to the Taz that you shouldn't put out pieces of bread. And then in the Shar Tzion in Yud Aleph, he says Hagra. V'tiku gam chayadam v'chein hevi chok Yaakov shem arrived. So he tells you all those that are opposed to putting out the bread. He says the Gra says you don't have to because he compares it to a apple. The Chok Yaakov quotes the Rabbi that says it's a minig nashim, it's a lady's minig, and then he says the Taz says it's better not to because you might lose the bread. Nonetheless, even though the Mishnah Berurah told you that all these poskim that are in opposition. But his conclusion is that the minig is ein kedai levatal minig Yisrael. Minig Yisrael prevails. That's what I imagine. Almost everybody here remembers doing Bedikas Chometz with your fathers, and you made believe that you didn't know where it was, or your father made believe you didn't know where it was. So it was.
I got really annoyed
What?
When we started doing our own Bedika, and my wife's mind is actually to really not know where it is. And so we have spent an hour and a half on Bedika actually looking for people.
Okay. Very good.
They say that with Moshe would never clean before, never allow people to clean the house before like the day of Erev Pesach, so that when they were doing the Bedika, he was really doing the Bedika.
Yeah, so that's a big shayla about if you clean the house. So what? There's no what does bedika mean? Okay, if we have time, I'll show you what Rosh Zalman says. Let me at least tell you halacha ma'isa, and then depending on how much time we have, I'll go back. A lot of the contemporary poskim did not believe in putting out pieces of bread, which it would surprise me, because I would have thought that's the minig Yisrael, and that's where they would have done. But if you look on page 4, for example. This is the Sefer Rabbi Kleinman. Rabbi Daniel Kleinman put out a Sefer with the Psakim of Shmuel Kamenetsky, and he says on the bottom of the page, "Umari Shlita" on page 4. "Umari Shlita Amar Leishu Hu Ein Raiga Niach Absisim." Shmuel Kamenetsky Shlita, he was my Rebbe in Philadelphia, he was my Rosh Yeshiva. he does not believe in putting out pieces of bread, and that also is the opinion of, if you look on page 6 in the Haggadah Shal Pesach Beis Levi. These Marmakomas are Rabbi Kleinman brings himself. There's a Haggadah, the Briska Haggadah they call it, of the Beis Levi. So in the beginning they have halacha Maisa. So he says Marna Griz. That's the Briska Rav Yitzchak Zev, Rav Yitzchak Zev, yeah, Rav Velvel. Onoganiach Psisim B'nei Kedas Agra. The Griz, that's the Briska Rav. That's the Rav Chaim's son. The Griz held, the Velvel held that you shouldn't put out a piece of bread, and the Briskers oftentimes follow the Minhag Gra. So they follow the Minhag Gra, they don't put out pieces. The Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky in the next paragraph, also from a Haggadah called Arze Halavonon, says Lohaniach Hasar B'sisi Chometz Kidei Limbs of Bedika. We came to call Yikush Bedika al Niskana El Safik. The Bedika was that you have to look for it. So you're looking for it, even if you don't find it. It was the Bedika is in case there's a possibility. But the Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky didn't put out. And then Rav Moshe Feinstein didn't put out. It says here in the bottom of this paragraph with Hagais Maran and Haggis Maran Rav Moshe Feinstein. So he says Lo Hitmin Pisusi Chometz Kadam Abedika. Rav Moshe didn't put out Chometz before the Bedika. So you have a lot of people that didn't put out they didn't.
So how did it become? Rav Moshe and Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, that's like based off of Lav and Hagim in America. So
Yeah.
how did it become so?
Well, it came from Europe. It came way before.
No, right. It came from Europe, but
They decided that they agreed with the Rabbi that it's a minig noshim, or maybe they agreed with the Taz that it's a bad idea. I don't know. They didn't put out. That's the bottom line. They didn't believe in putting out pieces of bread. But I mean, I'm surprised that Rav Moshe, who usually is very sensitive to minig Yisrael, the Mishnah Berurah is also very the one that's the most sensitive to minig Yisrael is the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan always defends the minig Yisrael. Mishnah Berurah is a little bit more critical of minig Yisrael, and at some places he says the minig Tos, and then the Aruch HaShulchan will come and justify it. And we discussed it that they say because the Chometz Chaim was not a practicing rabbi. A practicing rabbi develops a sense that they have to defend what people are doing. You have to stand up for. If a rabbi doesn't stand up for his kehillah, then he's not a good rabbi. So here the people are doing it to say that it's minig tos. Aruch HaShulchan didn't like that, so he. But I was surprised that Rav Moshe Feinstein, who I thought would also say it's a minig Yisrael. He doesn't even I mean, the only thing I would tell you is I tried to verify that that's what Rav Moshe really held. I don't know.
he wrote this.
No, he didn't. None of these things were written by the.
If Rav Moshe didn't clean his house before, and then it could be he didn't hold like Dari, but it could still be held maker than like our minhag.
Maybe because he didn't clean the house.
So we like knew about those. There's chometz here, and if you don't clean your house.
Okay. Maybe that's why he didn't do it.
But some of the sources here call it a minhag Yisrael, but there are other sources that clearly indicate
So it's not a minhag, right?
That there was this minhag in some places and not in others. So maybe it's not a minhag Yisrael.
Well, that's always the question of a minhag.
Has places they don't do it.
There's
They have places they don't do it.
Okay, but maybe Rav Moshe Feinstein.
look, the Beis Yosef said not to do it. The Beis Yosef already was not in favor of it, so that's why I was asking Doron if the Sfardim do it. So the Sfardim do it, it's because of the Arizal, probably not because the Beis Yosef, not because of the position, because it's Bibrach Matah. Okay, so but where does that leave us about? I don't have time to go through everything, but where does it leave us about if you're leaving early, should you put out pieces of bread? So it should depend on which one of the reasons are primary. If the reason is because if the reason is because of the bracha, for sure you don't have to put out if you're leaving if you're making bedika early, there's no bracha. But according to the other reasons, then l'chara you should have to put out pieces of bread. So Diane Weiss on page 7, Diane Weiss has a tshuva about this. He wrote a tshuva to the Chinever Rabbi, who was Rabbi Halberstam, and he says that if you look on the left side, the second paragraph, he says the Chinever said that you shouldn't put out pieces of bread, and he says I also agree that you shouldn't put out bread if you're leaving early. All the reasons that they give why you should put out bread for bracha v'atola, which is a very weak reason, and because otherwise people will forget to make a bedikas. He says the Taz's reason is much stronger because of the apple. He says al be'emes shows achshash b'tshuvas marivayo the kosa sham etam hanachas chometz kana bedika the bilti zeh lo matzah midi chashin shema yishkach habitul. We saw that the Marival says that if you don't have put out pieces of bread, so you'll forget to make the bittul. Avahash, and then I just skip a few lines. Avahash zochu b'shad shematzniach chometz b'makom sheberigiyum lechol kol yamos hashana. You keep the bread where you leave it the whole year, and therefore you'll remember to make bittul. So he says, there's the chametz that you find on the Bedikas chametz. If you put out bread and then you find that bread, you put it together with the other bread that you're planning to use for bir chametz. He says, "Arei dik because of the days of Yiskar came shematziyah chametz b'makom shurkim lechol moshe." He says you're keeping it in a place where you normally keep bread, so you'll remember that I have bread and I have to make sure to burn it. He says in Canaan, Tinachim Matzniach Chametz Beis Shvigil Lechol Shom Kol Yom Shana. Abba the same base Vikachim El Chametz. He said in Malcolm Shein Rogil Lechol Kol Yom Shana. Shach Shivchashan Shalatas. He said he's very medayik, and you could argue that it's not the language is not you can't the language is not so precise, but he holds that the Diane Weiss says that the whole value of putting away the chametz is you remember to make bittul. So that's if you have in your pantry, if you have chocolate cake and brownies and raguach, so you know that you have to make bittul on that. So by so the Taz is chash that you might forget, you won't forget because you'll put it with all the other chametz. Like in when we eat chametz till let's say till Friday. I eat my shredded wheat cereal till Erev Pesach in the morning. So I have a box with my shredded wheat, and when I do the bedika, I put those little pieces in plastic bags. Which, by the way, I don't like the plastic bags for the following reason: the chametz has to burn. It won't. I'm not sure it burns in the plastic bag. It could be that the ones that the fire department make. Maybe those are stronger fires and it melts. I don't know. But I do it in my backyard. I take it out of the plastic bags.
You smell the plastic. From half a block
You
away.
could smell the plastic. Yeah. They tell you not to put in the plastic.
Everybody seems to do it anyway.
Okay. Anyway, so he says that it's better. He says it's better not to put out the bread because of the Taz's reason, and the and even though the Marival says that there's if you're leaving early, you shouldn't put out bread because the whole reason why you put out bread if you're doing bedika is the whole reason why we're not worried about the Taz's tainas because you remember that you have extra bread because you already have other bread anyway. But if you're going away, you won't remember that you have extra bread. So therefore, that's the psak of the Dayan Weiss. On the other hand, if you look on the last page.
What about to keep the children interested? I know that's mainly for the saving.
That's a very good point that you're making. I'll come back to it in a second. If you look on page 8, this is a tshuva from Rabbi Yashav. So he says, if you're leaving before Yadal, he says, "Via time shekasa Ramah azoy tam haminag anir psid chametz k'dei shlo yeberachos avatala v'hol ma'aser fi mashkasa Ramah the gom erachim abadigar ensar anir." If you're leaving on Yud Gimel, he says then you don't have to put up bread because the Ramah's reason doesn't apply. Yitach shein hevdel ben Yigimel Yadal the gam with Tamach Yaakov the Zayim so Chometz Yitain Elibo lived okay Williams to Williams to Klum Yisash Bedikas Esha Gamkin. So he asks that you should put it out. He says because there's the other reason is that because the Yaakov says is that, if you don't find if there's no bread, so you're going to think that the Bedika is a joke. So you're not going to it'd be totally perfunctory. So Diane Weiss said you should put out you should not put out bread. Rabbi Yasha said you should put out bread. Rabbi Felder said the minig ha'olam is not to put out bread. The bottom line is you could do whichever way you want because there's room to do it one way and there's room to do it the other way. But the point that you were making about the kids is excellent point. If you look on page 5, Rabbi Yosef in Chavadas has a tshuva about whether you should put out pieces of bread, and he says. He says, if you look you see there's a split in the two paragraphs. There's the first paragraph, then the second paragraph, then there's the third paragraph. There's a split. It's not really a different paragraph. It's a different page. If you go down about 8 lines after that, he says, then that's not what I wanted. Then he quotes the Ivitz. Okay, I'm sorry. This is not what I wanted. It's about 10 lines to the end of this paragraph that we're in. He says, "Umaso reisi lagon Rabbi Kalfun Moshe Cohen b'sefer bris kuhuna." This Rabbi Kalfun, I think, was a Rav in Tunisia, and Rabbi Yosef had a lot of respect for him. He quotes him oftentimes. He was a contemporary. So he says, "Shekasash Adrai then lachas psisin kemat batel ikar takanas abdika." He quotes what the Chok Yaakov said, that if you don't put out a piece of bread, then they're not going to look for anything. They're not going to do a bedika. So Moshe Rav Kalfon says just the opposite, that by putting out the bread, it becomes a what we call in Yiddish kinderspiel. It's just for the kids. They only look for the little pieces. I think that's the bedika. It's better not to put out the pieces. It's better not to talk about it in public. If somebody is very careful in the halacha, so he should put out the pieces because of the arizal, that it's a minig of the mukubal. But otherwise, it's better not to put it out. But the Rabbi Yosef says in the last paragraph, he says, Rabbi Yosef says that you should. That's what the Rav should darshan about. I didn't copy the whole tshuva. This Rabbi Kalfan said that it won't help to tell the people because it's just you can make 100 drushes, people won't pay attention. Rabbi Yosef though had more confidence in the people, so he said, let the people know that the pieces of bread are not. That's not the end all for Bedikas Chometz, and we should put out the bread, but maybe it's to serve as a reminder that you have to look. And so that was there's this discussion back and forth. What's better? Is it better to put out pieces of bread, and that way the person knows that he has to look, or or does that make it worse? Somebody here said that for the kids it's important. You said because this way the kids know that there's such a thing as Bedika. Otherwise. What are the kids gonna? There's nothing to see. The father
do so many not funny things. We do so many things at the seder just to
Get them interested.
Yeah, for the children, sure, and it leaves a deep impression on the kids. The Bedikas Chom. I mean, that's in general the seder is the memories that we have from our youth are very powerful at the Seder. Pesach, Chanukah also. So the Bedikas Chometz, that's very strong memory in my mind. I'm sure in yours as well. That my father, Olav Shalom, used to pretend not to know where it was when we hit it. Sometimes we hit it so well that he couldn't find it. We were kind of rambunctious. Okay, so again, the should you put out pieces of bread in general? Yesh v'yesh, even on Leil Yudalad. And if you leave early, should you put out pieces of bread? So Rabbi Yasha said you should. Rabbi Dayan said you shouldn't. You could do either way. There's no. Rabbi Felder says that he thinks the minig is not to. I've been telling people not to, but I don't know. Now that I see all these sources, maybe, especially if Rabbi Yasha says you should, maybe I'll tell the people it's up to you. If you want to, you could.
There's probably a strong argument in favor of doing it because just because a person's going away this year doesn't mean they're going to go away next year.
Right.
Chazal are always concerned about that.
Very good. Right. You're going to set it. You get used to a new pattern of behavior. Okay. That's the story for Bedikas Chometz.
Personal experiences have never